Welcome to this deep dive for Transfer Ready by Succession Strength. I want you to imagine like a very specific scenario
Oh,
today.
yeah, set the stage for us.
Right. So you are literally days away from cashing out on a $50 million business sale.
The dream, right.
Exactly. I mean, the champagne is basically on ice. And then suddenly you watch your valuation completely plummet.
Just fall right off a cliff.
Yeah, and all because of one single, completely overlooked detail.
It is, it's a devastating scenario for any owner. And today, we are really exploring exactly why that happens. Specifically, how vendor concentration acts as this hidden deal killer.
So let's look at this specific $50 million deal. We have a specialty manufacturer, flawless operations, perfect margins, and, a deeply loyal customer base.
Right, the numbers look amazing on paper.
Totally. And they are about to be acquired by a private equity fund. Financial diligence is cleared. Legal is done.
The finish line is right there in sight.
Yes. But then the buyer's operational team steps in, right? And they ask to see the vendor continuity plans.
And that is exactly where the fatal flaw gets exposed. Because, well, this company had a massive 40% dependency on a single raw material supplier.
40%.
Yeah, 40%. And absolutely zero backup plans in place.
Oh, wow. So no documented risk assessment, no disaster recovery testing, nothing.
Literally nothing.
It's like, I don't know, buying a multi-million-dollar luxury car, right? But then realizing the engine exclusively runs on this rare fuel made by one guy in a remote shed.
That is such a perfect way to look at it because, to the seller, that single vendor represents this trusted long-term relationship.
Sure, it's the bedrock of their daily operations.
Exactly. But a buyer views that exact same relationship as an unmanaged single point of failure.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Because, owners do this intentionally all the time. If you consolidate your purchasing with one supplier, you get massive volume discounts, right?
You do, which boosts your EBITDA.
Right, which is the exact metric sellers are trying to maximize for a higher sale price. Plus, if you've had a handshake with this supplier for 20 years without a single hiccup, doesn't that track record count for something?
It's completely logical that you would feel secure. But you have to look at the math of a buyout.
Okay, how so?
Well, a private equity firm isn't buying the emotional trust you have built. They are buying a verifiable risk profile.
So the 20-year handshake is what, meaningless to them?
Honestly, it's actually a liability because it implies informal, undocumented processes. Sellers naturally obsess over trailing revenue and margins, but buyers, they aggressively stress test the supply chain looking forward.
Because if something goes wrong, say that one supplier has a fire or maybe a labor strike.
The whole machine just stops.
Right.
And in this specific scenario, the CFO had to admit that production would literally shut down for months.
Oh, man. Months without revenue.
Exactly. And without proven, documented resilience, buyers are going to aggressively price that risk into the deal. In this case, the buyer hit them with a very painful 15% risk discount.
15%? That is millions of dollars wiped out instantly.
It is, which is why uncovering these blind spots early is so crucial.
So if buyers are pricing in this risk by aggressively stress testing the supply chain, how does an owner run that same stress test on themselves before the buyer does?
Well, that is where the succession strength journey becomes critical. The first step is the business transition risk diagnostic.
Right, the diagnostic.
Yeah, because rather than just, asking for a list of vendors, it forces you to identify those hidden contingency gaps.
Which makes sense because you might assume a supplier is safe simply because you are so close to the daily operations.
Exactly. It reveals those vulnerabilities.
And once you identify those gaps, the logical next step is the business transition readiness assessment, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because that is where you formally evaluate the math behind your vendor concentration and, your overall supply chain resilience.
It basically shows you exactly what a buyer's operational team is going to find.
It gives you the buyer's lens.
Right. And if that assessment uncovers a glaring dependency, advisory is available to help you build out that necessary resilience.
So you don't have to fix it alone.
No, but you absolutely have to identify it early.
Yeah, that is the key. Well, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought today.
It's a tough one.
It is. If your absolute biggest supplier vanished tomorrow morning, exactly how many days would your business survive?
It is a really heavy question, but it's the one you absolutely must have an answer for before you sit at a closing table.
100%. To make sure your business is truly ready, visit successionstrength.com or email info@successionstrength.com.
And if you found this deep dive insightful, be sure to follow the podcast so you never miss a conversation.
Until next time, keep looking for those blind spots.